guys were talking.
Anyway, now we are live here. So yeah, recap. How was yesterday's conversation? What happened?
We were talking about experimentation at one stage, and they were saying, that's for tomorrow, Alex. That's for tomorrow's session. Experiment. And here we are, Friday experiment. I wanted the top 10, I wanted the members of the GCC to put on the web document, the web page, the top 10 ideas for global collaborology.
That's an interesting theme. Top 10 ideas for global collaborology.
Yeah, I had a question, which is how many of us here at the GCC actually have any clue how to do global collaborology or global governance? Because I can honestly say I have no clue. I don't have a global governance plan. I'm not very good at governing the globe.
Yeah, that's a good question.
We don't have one. The globe doesn't have one either, but we can make one pretty simply. If we keep the corporations out of the planning, well, if they want to help plan, they have to do so with the right integrity, the right motive. Apple and Samsung and Amazon, Google,
Huawei.
They can come on board and help us if we give them permission, but they have to. I think that they're pretty smart and they already know we have to do something about the climate, so they'd be willing to agree that the motive and the operandi has to be unselfish and for the betterment of the environment, for the extinction of the species and for the survival of the humanity. That's pretty simple. Keep it basic.
I heard a really good, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say that I feel like the Apple company, what Steve Jobs did by putting a supercomputer connected to a telephone into everyone's pockets is a lot of power. And what you do with that supercomputer, a lot of people have done a lot of good with that little device, connecting it to a lot of other devices because it has the ability to work on access in space and time. It's got a gyroscope built into it. So if you tilt it this way, it detects it. If you tilt it this way, it detects. And then they only had 3 axes, and then they put 6 axes. So you can tilt it in 6 ways, and it detects where it is in space and time. So then you can connect it with the visual part of it where it can see things through these cameras. There's one on the front and one in the back. And then that can not only detect what it's seeing, but the access upon which it's detecting it. So there's so many applications that could be used for helping the climate. For example, you could, yeah, go ahead.
The phone can see what it's looking at and who's looking at it.
And it has 9, I think, wait, now it's got 13 radio signals, 13 frequencies coming out of it on top of 6 to 9 axes. I'll have to check if they went from 6 to 9, but it can tilt in space 6 or 9 ways, and it has 13 wavelength frequencies, AM, FM, there's a couple Bluetooth, there's multiple Wi-Fi, 5G, 2, what is it? The megahertz of the 5G frequency. It's got a lot of detection abilities. So what you build around that, they gave us the device. What we build around that and how we use it as a sensor and as a processor, it's got a super 8-core computer chip inside of it. And that computer chip connects to a satellite with GPS. That's another frequency. What you could do with that is beyond. I mean, if we just sat around and talked about all the different things we could do with that and put them into application to help the world,
well,
I just can't believe I have that device. I can't believe it's sitting right here and I can use it. It's just amazing.
I got upset when I discovered that change.org sold out. Change.org were doing a lot with the petitions, global petitions. everybody knew change.org.
I've
Everyone
heard
got
about
an,
it, yeah.
everyone got an email to sign a petition at change.org. Well, they sold out. Change.org sold out to the multimedia, the mainstream media corporation. The mainstream media corporation that started the virus, the virus that went around Iran looking for nuclear detail. That virus spread to a lot of corporations. And where it couldn't get into a corporation, it got into a user's account on the internet.
What's the name of the virus?
Skynet, something like that.
Skynet virus?
It was the one, I don't know the name of it. It was used by the military to harvest information from the Iranian nuclear program. That was what it was designed. That was designed for that. It was a military virus, right? A military application. But it got into everything. It wasn't. It was only activated on the sites where they needed the information. But it got into everyone's account, and if they want to activate it, they can. It's just about everyone.
I'm looking it up right now.
If you buy a new computer, brand new computer or phone, you might be safe.
Yeah.
But if you hook up to somebody else's machine on the internet, you'll get downloaded. It'll download into your machine.
What does the virus do? Does it just capture data, or does it do anything else?
It opens a back door on the machine to the hacker. It gives the hacker full access rights on your machine to collect data and monitor activity. It's a powerful thing. It's an administration key. It's an administration key to your computer, and it was spread.
Do you mind if I share what I saw, what you're talking about? Because
go ahead, yeah.
Did you find the name of it?
Yeah, I found it. This is a virus. This is a wiki called the Malware Wiki, and it's saying a DOS virus. And it's virus.dos.skynet is a memory resident parasite virus in DOS. So DOS is the disk operating system inside of Microsoft. So it's not inside of all computers.
Well, you'd find it. It wasn't produced by Microsoft. It was produced by the military. Okay, it's a military, and if you look up,
I know.
Iran,
I'm showing you what it actually is, though. It's a MD5
no, but
patch.
you've got Skynet, right? And that's the wrong one. Okay, it's not Skynet. Sorry, I gave you the bullshit name. It's something else, but it does start with S. And it does start with S.
If
I
you
know that
find the
much.
name, here, I'll stop sharing. If you find the name of that actual virus, Alex.
Yeah, well, let me finish.
Yeah, but I don't want to talk about bullshit and conjecture.
Yeah,
if you know the name of the virus, tell me the name of the virus, and I'll tell you what it does.
I didn't intend. I can tell you what I know. Okay, I don't want. I said Skynet because I didn't know the real name. I was trying to remember what the name. I'm trying to remember what the name. Okay, Skynet came to mind because Skynet was the first thing that popped into my mind when I was thinking about what was that virus name. Okay, now what I can tell you is that it was used in Iran by the military. It was used to find out nuclear secrets from Iran. So it was.
Alex, I believe you.
If you Google virus, Iran, nuclear information and virus, you'll get the name of that one.
Okay.
I think I heard a little bit about it, but yeah, but what I don't understand, what
I find spooky, what I find really spooky is that you guys don't know about it.
Well, what I find spooky is that we're speaking about viruses instead of speaking about what we can use those machines for. Seems more reasonable, more interesting. What we.
What I find spooky is we're not talking about the truth, which is I'm a computer scientist. If there's an actual virus, I want to understand what it is, how it works, what it does, and how to stop your computer from loading that virus. That's pretty much what I do with as a web developer. It's very easy to spread viruses on websites. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really easy to put a pixel on your website and someone clicks on it and it runs an executable file on the client side. And we're running a lot of JavaScript that runs viruses on your side, not in the cloud, not on the server, but in your computer. So it's really important that we understand these things.
Yeah,
That's
what
how
does
easy.
it do? Does it just capture data, or does it?
It sits there doing nothing until they activate it. If they want to know something about you, they can turn it on and it opens your back door in your machine. It's a administration key, backdoor key, and it's very effective, and they used it. I mean, the people who did it are pretty clever,
Well,
and it spread around the world. And the reason it spread so far is because millions of users on Facebook didn't have any security, or didn't have very good. They didn't have very good security. They were clicking links on emails and things like that and getting infected. And we all got infected, and it hasn't been turned on until they suspect you, because they need time to check things out, don't they? They need time to find the people they're interested in learning more information about. That's why they targeted Iran.
yes, exactly. So I guess I don't see
Yep.
why I should be so worried about it, because I don't have anything especially to hide. So if somebody sees all the data in my computer, then it doesn't really matter for me. And that's on the one hand. And on the other hand, I know they're never going to have time for it anyway. So.
Yeah, but the people who designed that computer virus are designing similar copycat viruses because they want money. They're after money. They're corporations, and they'll take $5 out of a billion accounts just so they can get $5 billion.
No, my account is very secure. It's they're not getting a single cent out of it because the bank has full oversight. They're gonna notice it in a second.
I found $5 on my account, right, and I didn't know who took it out.
Yeah, well, I guess it can happen, of course. You would know it if it happened, right? But are you there, Josh?
Yeah, I'm just reading about Stuxnet that you're talking about, the virus that Alex was talking about.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that before, but that's many years ago, right?
Yeah, that was in 2005 and 2010. But it's not. I wish I could just take all my knowledge and just go bloop, and plug it into both your brains, and then you can take your knowledge and plug it into my brain, because working with Microsoft from 1993 all the way to 2001, when they came up with Windows XT or NX, we hacked that every day, all day. I had a backdoor into everyone's computer all the time. It was called Back Orifice. And that computer system was so hackable and so easy to hack. It was, and to this day, it's still very easy to hack Microsoft.
Yeah, they were so.
It's a bad operating system.
But is the primary issue that people get access to so they can see the data, but that doesn't mean they delete it, right? Or they possibly could, but then you'd know, right?
How would you know?
Because I wouldn't see it. Well, what I'm saying is that I wouldn't know if they can see the data, obviously, but if that's all they can do.
When you read the terms and conditions, there's a line somewhere buried in the terms and conditions that says, if you agree, if you press yes, we have given our company access to your data.
Yeah.
Just about everything. And so the corporation knows what you buy before you want to buy it.
Yeah, I know all that. I don't see why it's such a big problem, though.
Yeah.
Well, why should? It doesn't seem like it terrible problem if they
Well,
did
no. Now, let me get round to the point I was trying to make at the beginning, is that data is worth money, a lot of money. And those corporations pay virus designers lots of money to design viruses to get just specifically to harvest data from the billions of people on Facebook.
Right.
And
So
if you get an
harvesting
email,
data.
if you click a video, you watch a video on a website, you've given that application the backdoor entry.
Then
into
I've
your
given
system.
them some knowledge
Yeah.
of a pattern of behavior that I do when I click on the video, and maybe some
No,
what I'm interested in.
You've opened the back door. You've left the back door open. That's why you've done more than you give them some data.
Back door to more data, perhaps. Right.
Back door to everything you think.
I don't know about that, but
well, you've got every website you've ever visited, every web page you've ever hovered over, every picture you've hovered your mouse over and clicked on for a closer look. All that data is there for them, and they can specifically search for certain things, patterns.
It's called a heat map. Yeah, we use it all the time. It's a heat map.
Yeah.
For marketing.
Yes, exactly. But that isn't data that any person can see, obviously, because it's physically impossible because of the amount of data, of course.
No, that's not true, actually. You can see it all.
How can you see it? You'll have to see some representation.
Do you want me to show you?
Yeah.
We are generating all that data. That's why they are. That's why they are interested in us.
These conversations. That's a good example. Like all of these conversations, if they're shared publicly, then that data is owned by the whole world, so to say.
Doesn't matter if it's shared publicly, they've got a hold of it anyway.
Yeah, especially if it's shared publicly, right?
They can search through it. That's a bullshit thing that makes us feel better. Like we can think that we've got something private when really we haven't got anything private.
No, not totally private for sure. It's different degrees of privacy. But
unless we've just bought a new machine. If you just bought a brand new computer and you haven't been on any websites, you might be safe. You haven't downloaded a virus that's watching your every move.
Yeah, exactly.
Data is the new gold. When you remember that data is the new gold, you'll understand why they are harvesting all this data.
Well, it's always been that way.
Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah, I guess it's always been that way. Yeah, data is the new gold. Yeah, let's see what you got here. Heat map. This is interesting.
When every visitor to your website leaves behind an IP address, unless they're using a virtual private server or an onion router, like a Tor browser. So
yes.
Regular surfers leave behind a trail, and you can look at the map and see where they came from, where they were clustered. That's the heat map.
Yeah, is the heat map loading?
The color codes are useful because they can indicate which ones were clicking on, which ones were buying things and which ones were just visiting and not buying stuff.
Right, yeah, that's sort of the larger trends, for example. Yeah.
So this is just software. Yeah, I can turn this off. This is just software showing you how you can grab big chunks of data and move them around and analyze them quickly using multiple databases. So SQL is a database, Oracle, Salesforce, etc. And you can move the data in and around and analyze it any way you want.
Oh yeah, there
And
you
this,
come. Hmm.
yeah, I'm just saying, so you have the traffic, and then you have the page metrics that Alex is talking about, is when you're hovering over something, but then you can mix and match it with other databases and cross-reference it. So the average person can work with big data. And the reason that works is because it's called a container, and those containers in the cloud can store that big data for you. And you can store that from your website. So if you think of it in simple terms, there used to be a thing in America where you could buy 16 records or CDs or cassette tapes for a penny. And what they would do is they would charge you nothing because they wanted to use the data of which music you chose to profile you as a consumer, to sell that data to other companies to be able to sell you things. If you like Nirvana and you also like classical music and you're really interested in 70s rock, then they can extrapolate from that data that you would also like to buy a Honda Accord.
Yeah. I get all that. Yeah, but that implies that all that data is based on the past, obviously. So it's based on past explicit behaviors and choices that a person has made, and then creates a certain profile around them that can make some predictions.
Yeah, and what Alex is talking about is really serious and very scary, is that when you take a little bit of data and you extrapolate a lot, imagine if you take a lot of data, how much can you extrapolate? Meaning every time Alex leans forward, or every time he moves his mouse, or every time he clicks over to this other website, or every time he clicks on any engagement point itself, that's some basic data. But then they also can extrapolate that with his GPS data of where he is at that time, where he was 3 hours ago, et cetera, et cetera. Get to the point where you start to go, wait a second, this is Big Brother in reality, and it is very, 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 very real. I don't know how many varies I can say, but it is a very, very real thing at the amount of data that's being extrapolated, sold, and bought.
Right.
And
but what about the ability to process that data? What about the ability to understand it? To have time to understand it?
That's the AI.
So,
that's the algorithm.
So that ability, there's actually a place in Google called Big Data where you can export and upload that, all of that data, and it can extrapolate it. And then that's what Alex is talking about. AI is actually not real, but what is real is called machine learning. So artificial intelligence, we do have access to specific programs that can quote unquote be artificial intelligence, but that's not true. They're just machine learning algorithms. And the machine learning is doing, it's really interesting if you just learn the basics of machine learning, is your brain has neurons and inputs come in and then inputs go out, and they create little loop systems where if the data that came out of that neuron equates to this, send it back in and push it back through that input output. And that's machine learning, where each time it goes through the loop, it takes out the, what's the word I'm looking for? It takes out the anomalies. It takes out the things that didn't process right.
The weighting.
Go ahead, Alex. Say again.
It takes out the items that weren't weighted or were weighted more than others.
If you're actually extrapolating from the weights of it,
the weight,
it's okay. It's fine.
The score. Every time it goes through the process, the data receives a score on the ledger, and if it reaches the limit, it's discarded. If it doesn't reach the limit, it continues going around until it's used. Is that right? It's a if-then statement. Subroutine.
Yeah, well, the subroutines are more than just the weights of it, because weights are one thing, but it can actually create a new output. So for example, if you're trying to figure out if the picture you're looking at is a kitty cat, and then you draw the lines around it, and then you send it out and say, do these lines match other pictures of kitty cats? If it does, send it forward. If it doesn't, loop it back through and redraw the lines and keep doing that. And that's machine learning.
You know what's wrong with it is that when humans learn, they use pattern recognition, but also they use bias. We weight things. We put weight on things according to their priority. We prioritize according to our values. Machines don't have that facility, so machine learning can't do that, unfortunately. Not yet, anyway.
But
Wait, say that again, Alex.
He was mentioning bias and priority.
When a human evaluates a piece of data, it adds a value weighting according to the individual doing the weighting set of values that determine which decision to make. You have a built-in, you've got a built-in set of values that come from the core beliefs of your judgment system, and so that's a human thing. You know, it's to do with emotions, historical traditions, and values. So, getting back to the machine language, that hasn't got a values. There's no value system in existence for the machine. It's only using data. So it's only got the highest number or the lowest. It's got a higher number or a lower number. That's the only value. One's bigger than the other. There's no intrinsic knowledge there that puts an emotional or spiritual value on it. It hasn't come from a biological.
That's what I was trying to explain.
Yeah, it's not biological.
That is true, but it isn't, and it is in the sense that the humans are programming the machine learning, and how you set up these sets, these neurological sets, is what creates the biases and the emotion and this and that. And the more complex you set up the machine learning, the more it starts to mimic the actual human biases and the human emotions. And that's what everyone's been talking about, is the people that are programming the machine learning. How you run those data sets is going to determine the outcome of the end of the machine learning and how it learns.
Well,
so it's just like teaching it.
But one question, Josh, is the end result of all this data gathering, then would you say that is that the profile of the person becomes more accurate? It becomes, for example, ability to predict the person's next choices.
So I'll give you an example from Yuval Harari. And he says, if the computer is detecting your facial movements, when you're looking at a screen, and the example he gives, because he happens to be a homosexual, he's a gay man, is the computer can know if you are homosexual before you know, because of the way that you're looking at different pictures and where you move your eyes and how your facial expressions are. And it can even read heat maps, you know, with an infrared camera. It could tell if different capillaries in your cheeks are lighting up, and it can know that you have a proclivity towards a sexual libido stimulus towards men as opposed to women before you even know. And that's where it gets really scary, is if the computer knows before you know, what does that mean for society?
Why is that scary? Isn't the end result then that it's a better knowledge of who we are?
Yeah, I'd like to know about any.
Go ahead,
I'd love
Alex.
to know if I had a fetish that I didn't know about. I'd prefer the machine to inform me, at least if it's been watching my responses.
Yes. It sounds like it would just be a help.
I'd rather know about it than not know. So more information is good, right? Data is...
Well, let's bring it... Do you mind if I bring it to the spiritual?
Bring it on, yeah.
So as human beings, we might have a proclivity to something at one moment in time because of our experiences the day before or the hour before, but that doesn't define who we are as human beings, because we're growing and evolving. I like to think of us as light beings having a human experience, but we're more than just human beings. We're souls traveling through a reality. So by having something define that reality, as opposed to us inside of our souls or our hearts or something more spiritual, if we are the ones that are experiencing it as opposed to being acted upon, that is where things get a little tricky. You know, that's where it gets slippery.
So basically, the knowledge that can be generated then is just a knowledge of certain patterns and regularities in manifest behavior. And it doesn't say anything about potentials. So at best, it's an accurate representation of patterns and regularities in behavior that has occurred until now, which clearly is important information, but also clearly limited and not representative of the true being, as you say.
Well,
sure. Go ahead, Alex.
Sorry, they asked the computer, how are we going to save humanity from disaster, from this catastrophe? And the computer says, well, this computer's got no emotion, right? It's a machine. It says, you want to save the environment and the humanity, you've got to wipe out 5 million people if you want to have any chance of surviving.
And then it's not very, then it doesn't consider options like spaceships and ocean vessels, new civilizations in the desert, on the oceans, spaceships, other planets.
Buy a ticket.
There's plenty of space for more humans. So that sounds like a pretty dumb computer.
Yeah. Have you got a ticket? Have you got your ticket?
Well, it is a dumb computer. I mean, a lot of humans are dumb computers. I mean, we're just computers computing this reality right now. But how, like Jaswinder said earlier in the conversation, have you seen the divine light? Is if the human has not experienced things beyond, I'll just use that word dumb, beyond the X equals Y multiplied by Z. If you haven't gone through that algorithm yourself as a human being and taken that algorithm aside and then experienced reality outside of the, if there's a bright light in the sky, that's the sun. Okay, that is the sun. The sun is cool. The sun is hot. It's dumb.
That's very dumb, of course.
That's called present.
Go ahead,
that's called presencing. Isn't that presencing? Being in the now, living in the now moment. Saying, wow,
yeah, but when you're in the now, you don't say that is the sun. Then you're silent and you just take it in.
You say, wow, look, what's that thing?
Well, we all are going to say something different because we're different computers processing with different sensors and different ability. Like if I look at the light, I might actually in my mind see a histogram, which is what the camera sees of how much light it's taking in, and a chart of the amount of light. And I start thinking about Isaac Newton and his experiments with the spectrums of light itself and the color radiation. And I'm thinking all these things, and another person is just going, light. Like it's how we process information is individual. Each person is processing differently depending on how their computer was programmed by the experiences in life.
And this ties back to this theme of data though, because that seems to imply that just the gathering of data in itself doesn't really generate any meaning, because how can you know what's meaningful and not if you don't know what's important and what's less important? To take an example, I mean, every single day I receive from my subjective experience enormous amounts of data, and unbelievable flow of data continuously. And, you know, but there's certain mechanisms through which I choose what's relevant and what's not. And I mean, they're too complex to even understand them. But
Well, maybe they're not. I mean, that's the conversation I want to have is, can we understand how we're sensing data? Meaning our conscious mind senses something. Right now, you have your headphones on and you hear us talking in this conversation, but your subconscious mind can actually pick up on nuances outside of the room, outside of the headset, and you can hear the birds down the street chirping, and your brain can detect that, but it can process it in the subconscious, and your conscious mind is not going to realize that. But in your dream state tonight, you might have a whole dream about the birds that were chirping down the street, because your brain is still processing that data, just not in real time right now in the conscious. It's our brains are absolutely amazing. And then if you talk about the sensors outside of the physical body, that's where it gets interesting.
Have you ever heard of a book called A New Pair of Glasses? It's really good.
No, what is that about?
It's an interesting read. It's about an alcoholic who's sobered up. It's just about his journey from the darkness and depression of alcoholism to a couple of years without booze. I think it's a story about his awakening to what he was doing to himself. So it was looking at the world like when you get a hearing aid, all of a sudden you hear the bird chirping, the robin singing, and the cricket in the grass. Before you got the hearing aid, they may as well have not existed in your world. So the sound and the light together give you the experience of reality. If that light is divine, like Josh was talking about the divinity of light, then the sound's also on a spectrum, a wavelength. Sound is a vibration as well. The light might be a wave, light might also be a particle, but sound is just a wave. There's no particles in sound, as far as we know. So, but when you mix sound, have you heard of Winamp? You get the visuals and the sound together.
I'm going to say, can we go a little further into sound not being a particle, meaning what is sound actually? Like when you hit the sound barrier and you explode it, what is it interacting on? What is the sound carried over? Meaning you can hear sound on water farther than you can outside.
Right? It's motion, movement, frequency, isn't that
physical? It's physical. The hairs in the air, behind the eardrum, there's little hairs sticking up, and the sound waves actually move them, like water flowing across the reeds in a stream, like water flowing across the seagrass in the water. That moves. That movement sets up an electrical signal that goes to your brain. So that tells you what vibration that movement was, and you hear the noise. It's a miracle.
Yeah.
So if we're in space, Alex, can you hear noise? Don't you need oxygen to carry the sound?
Yeah. In space, nobody can hear you scream.
But that's my whole point, is that the sound wave itself has to interact with the physical matter in order to be detected.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
In the beginning was the planet, right? In the beginning was the planets, and then there was the word. Because you can't have a word, you can't have a vibration sound without physical matter to vibrate.
Well, there might have always been a vibration and always been some kind of matter, which might be the solution to that problem. But doesn't all this imply pretty directly that sound is basically made of movement? That it is the movement itself through whatever that is the sound, and pretty much is everything. Data too. I mean, movement is what defines data. I mean, you couldn't have data without movement. It wouldn't be data. It wouldn't be anything.
You could ask Jaswinder. He knows about having something without something.
Yes. Look, you've been listening for a while. Have anything to share about this, Jas? Anything you want, of course.
My Zoom keeps freezing and I don't know why. I'm trying to see if there's anything I can do. I don't know. Might have to reload it sometime, probably later. Sound is a vibration that needs a medium. Unlike light, sound is not electromagnetic. It's the molecules of the air or the molecules of the water or the molecules of a solid that vibrates through. So if you hit a tympanum, which is what the eardrum is, and on the other side of that is a little bone, 3 little bones, and they can take that 3 little bones, take the vibration, amplify it, and then that's converted to an electrical signal. Same with the eye. The light goes in, becomes an electrical signal, and goes into the brain. So we are, in some ways, quite a way bit into digital being. Even when you poke your eyes out, we're still digital. We're electrical beings. And as the light goes in, the question does arise, if you're taking electromagnetic energy in, can you see your own electromagnetic energy? What color is it? What practices do you need to do to be able to see it? How do you get to see it? And that's when religion comes in.
Depends on what color the mushroom.
Or you can do it scientifically, because they get cottoning on as well, that under certain circumstances it does happen. And that's about all I have to say. I'm complete.
Well, this is an idea that I've had. I mean, I don't have all that. I have a very limited experience with what you can call psychedelic substances. But what is sometimes mentioned is this experience of seeing colors very vividly. So the hypothesis for me was that the colors that are seen in those so-called hallucinations are colors that are actually here all the time. It's just that the mind comes upon a certain frequency where they can recognize it. And that even involves some of these really beautiful fractal shapes and dancing shapes. It seems that those are...
Before you can start to say things like hallucinations and mind, you first have to try and somehow define what the mind is. And do all the collective minds individually see more or less the same things? So, you know, when you look at the visible spectrum, the spectrum of the electromagnetic radiation that's visible to us, is pretty much limited, very tiny portion, but we all see the same portion of the electromagnetic radiation spectrum. Now that is a commonality. And the same with the sound waves. The sound waves that we can actually hear, I have been told, and we can look this up anytime, we have a limitation. Elephants have a different spectrum, dogs have a different spectrum, and the same with the other senses. We seem to be operating in slightly different spectrums. But as human beings, we hear, we see, we interpret the incoming information more or less in the same spectrum. You know, the ideas, an abstract idea of, say, beauty. What is beauty? What is handsome? What is ugly? What is, take something Alex said earlier, what is evil? What is good? These ideas and these interpretations we're pretty much agreed on to very close limits. So the interpretation we placed on the whole planet, all we've been doing here today is more or less agreeing on how the information is being presented to us and how we're interpreting it. The next step isn't all that difficult, except to use a word which somebody else takes a dislike to. But, and it's a big but, some of us want more of the goodies and they're willing to kill for it. And others are saying, well, I don't want all these goodies and I can live a minimal life. So when we talk about these things, we don't take those considerations into account. That why do we see what we see more or less the same? You know, I've never heard anybody look at the sunlight and say, oh, in the middle of the day, for argument's sake, the sun's blue. No, it's always that golden, orangey, yellowish color. Because as it comes through the atmosphere, the light is refracted somewhat, and that's what we see. And then the sky is blue because of the oxygen, etc., etc. Yeah. Where do you want to take this conversation is the question.
Well, the starting point of the conversation was top 10 ideas for global collaborology. And so far, I've written data, light, sound, movement, mind.
You can't have a global collaborology because the people in the globe don't all agree. Yes, Alex.
Joshua, I think, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say when you brought up that top 10, I brought up the iPhone with the detectors and the amount of detectors outside of our detector system of a human, and combining those two detector abilities of the human and the device to help with global governance, to create executable things. For example, I'll give a perfect example is I'd like to create better soil detectors than the ones that are detected. And there's a gentleman doing the same thing with smart devices onto sensors to understand the microbes in the soil so that we can have detectors of all the soil on all Mother Earth and help to regenerate and rebuild the microbes in the soil so that we can grow back the plants on this planet. That we know we need the plants because the plants help us breathe. We know we need the plants because they feed us.
Let me just interrupt, just a short interruption. Then you have corporations like Monsanto who want to kill all the bugs, and they want us to use their seeds and their system of plant growing incomplete.
Yeah, and that corporation is no longer Monsanto. Now it's BASF. Let's just be clear about that.
I thought it was Bayer.
It's the same thing with a different name.
Bayer by BASF.
Well, they spend a lot of money in researching high technology detectors, soil detection systems, and water detection.
So
but you know what's interesting is the drones that are planting trees. These drones deposit a tree with the soil and the seed and everything ready to grow, and they fly over the land planting in a grid pattern, thousands of trees. These drones can plant millions of hectares in a month, you know. Incredible. Over.
So here's the big question, Alex, is are we going to let the corporations do the farming on this planet, or are we going to actually step up and do the farming on this planet? And when I say farming, I mean every type of farming, from growing food and trees to farming the conversations that we're having here, to farming the social structures, to farming the governance structures. Are we going to do that, or are we going to allow corporations to do that?
Okay, so let me interject, please. I want to interject. Corporations. Should we say that a corporation is humans and their activities which are organized around the concept?
Well, have you worked for a corporation, Glenn?
Yes, sure.
Which one? What were they called? What's their name? How big were they, if you don't mind my asking?
Several. Well, one was called Posten. That's called Evening Mail, so it's a fairly large newspaper. And that was a building. it was people, computers, signals being sent, choices of what to write and publish, obviously many other things. But when we say a corporation, we sometimes seem to speak about it as if it's some kind of life form out there by itself. But the point I'm making is that a corporation is people doing certain actions in a certain pattern. And then there's certain informational patterns, like concepts like a name, a brand, which sort of organizes it. But it doesn't seem that there exists any corporations which are not governed by humans doing human activity. So I guess we once again return to this idea of movement, which for me is the foundational one here, and everything we've spoken about.
Well, what defines the movement of a corporation? How does the chief executives of the corporation decide what movement they're going to do to flow the energy through all of the bits and pieces of the machine that became the corporation?
So what are the priorities?
How are they? Well, how are they able to make their decisions, and what are the decisions based off? And the real crux of the whole thing is, if the decision is based off of what brings more profit to the shareholders of the corporation versus what brings better value to the human beings.
Okay.
That is the question.
That's a big important question. Yeah.
And as someone who's ran a corporation, when I was running the corporation, I had to make a decision, not just for the human beings, but for the corporation itself. And when you start giving the energy to the power of the machine, meaning it has to stay alive, otherwise the corporation dissolves and dies. If it can't grow, meaning if it doesn't have an influx of energy, one of them is currency, the other one is values and moods. I mean, there's so many ways to manage a corporation, but where it gets tricky and slippery is when that corporation has to make a decision. They don't have the power to make that decision. There's another corporation that's going to buy that corporation. So if they make the wrong decision, they no longer own the right to govern the corporation. That right gets taken away. And that is what's been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years, is if you make decisions that allow you to be vulnerable as a corporation, you no longer own your own corporation. You're no longer in control. Someone like Bayer buys Monsanto, and that's owned by BASF. And the leaders of that corporation are beholden to who? And you go up the line.
And then at some point, the leaders are beholden to what they call the market, right? Or this is at least one way of
you would hope that that would be the case, but the market itself, it's a feedback loop where they're beholden to the control of the marketplace, controlling the people, telling them to buy the things, and that feedback loop continues. Thus, who's actually in control anymore? We've lost control.
Nobody
it's almost
is
like
in control.
AI has already.
I think we've arrived
No
at the
one's in
solution.
control.
Nobody is in control. Yeah, that's what Terence McKenna said once. He said that the real truth is that there is nobody in control.
Well, I disagree. I disagree with that. I've got a smart TV and I wanted to get it replaced because one of the backlights is not working. And I got in touch with the store. The store told me, "Oh, we don't service that model anymore." And they gave me the local distributor's name. And they don't do it either. They gave me the manufacturer's name. The manufacturer's name is a little factory in China. And they serve the corporation. They don't deal with the public. So it didn't matter which way I went, I was touched. I had to buy a new TV. I couldn't get it replaced.
That exemplifies my point. Exactly. No one's in control.
At least not in any sort of total control, but we are in, let's say, positions of influence. That's also a peculiar thing, isn't it? When we talk about power, how do we understand someone who might be able to influence the whole world, but they don't even know it, and they don't know how they're doing it? It
Well,
feels
it's
a little bit
throwaway.
like that.
Who controls the throwaway society? The corporations make a lot of money out of these throwaway gadgets that expire after 12 months warranty. And we need more gadgets. And the factories producing these gadgets are what's heating up the world with carbon emissions. So it's the corporations driving us to selling us the gadgets, and the factories making the gadgets, and they don't last long. And the corporations have got it planned that way. They're totally in control. That's how they got trillions of dollars. They got trillions of dollars, and they're making more money every year. And the executives are going home with $1 million salaries and bonuses.
Yeah, but this is.
Well, why are they paying them all that money, Alex? Why are they
Because
giving them
they've
millions of
sorted out-
dollars?
Because they've worked out how to give us gadgets that break after 12 months, and we have to buy another one.
Well, I would venture to say they're giving them millions of dollars so that they don't rock the boat and change the control structure, because the people that are in control of these corporations are being paid off with extra money to make sure that they don't do what's right for humans, they do what's right for the corporation. And to make sure that they do what's right for the corporation, they give them extra money and extra incentive to not rock the boat and do what's right for the humans. They're going to do what's right for the corporation,
But wouldn't you say
because they'll lose that money.
but couldn't we say though that that's kind of mediocre for the corporations? It's not really great. It's like
I thought, sorry, I was going to tell you, I thought Rock the Boat was the Hughes Corporation.
Well, let's not get tangled up in my silly work.
But if corporation is essentially governed by people, I mean, we made that clear, right? And people are in different positions and different priorities, etc., etc. But I don't think I think it's correct to say that what's not good for the people is good for the corporations. We could also say that what's great for the corporations is great for the people if we go high enough. So that, let's say we're willing to aim high enough, we come to a point where all the interests align.
Question is, can you starve a cancer?
Yes.
The corporations are cancer.
There are
So
malignant.
can I give a more example, Glenn?
Yeah.
I'm going to just make it personal, if you don't mind. You're the head of a large chemical company, and you have to make a decision. Do you process the chemicals in a safe way not to hurt the people in your neighborhood, which will cost you more money and possibly bankrupt your chemical company? Or do you dump the chemicals in your backyard, pack up shop and leave, and set up another chemical company? Now, when you're making that decision, it's an easy decision to make. Let's say you're making $30,000 US per year. That's an easy decision because 30,000 isn't worth killing 100 people. But now if you're making $7.3 million a year, it's pretty easy for you to make the decision to just dump it because you want to get the $7.3 million next year. And if the corporation goes out of business.
Well, what if I don't? What if I don't get it next year? Because it gets exposed.
What's your decision?
Because it gets exposed. So dumping it is so risky that there's a pretty big likelihood that not only will I lose that money and the corporations, but will even go to jail and have the rest of my life ruined. So I guess it's one of those things. Would you go into a plane if it was a 90% chance that you survived and a 10% chance that it crashed? No, you wouldn't.
But
so,
let me put one more.
So the answer is I would do it safely.
Yeah. Yes, you would say that, and then you would be replaced by someone else that would get the 7.3 million to do it illegally. But here's the crux of it: is safe and legal is different when you have $30 or $40 million to change the law so you don't get in trouble. It's totally legal for you to dump it because the corporation has paid the legal structure, the government, to allow you to dump those chemicals with no repercussions to you. So you will never get arrested or in trouble for doing it. So you don't have to worry about, you're not going to get in trouble.
Well, that could change.
You just have to live.
The government could change. The government could change.
Sure, the people would have
Yeah.
to change those laws, but that's the whole point of the corporations going out of control, is if you make a decision to stand up and not do that, they'll replace you with someone else that will make that decision. And my point is, what helps people make bad decisions is being paid a lot of money. And that's why these top people get paid a lot of money to look the other way from morality of what's right, to do what they know is wrong, but they'll worry about that when they're in their yacht in the Mediterranean.
Okay, so does this mean
they're
then,
not too concerned about people?
does this mean then that the fundamental problem here is that the information that reaches the public is not good enough? Because if the information reached the public that
The public knows.
chemicals, yes, exactly, but the public is being distracted by propaganda because they're also letting themselves get distracted. So
Some of them
therefore, these aren't punished for it. The point I'm making is, if we had a more informed public, if we had a more informed conversation and data flow, it would be too risky to dump it. So you would choose the safe option.
Even if you're, that's the nice way to think of it. But even if you're informed, you can't change the laws, so you have no power. So just turn on another show on Netflix and forget about it, because you have nothing you can do as the public.
But if
Even
the
if you know
public
about
is,
it.
But the point I'm getting is, if the public is well informed, then the laws will be sensible over
I
a
think-
certain
Well,
period
let me
of
ask you a
time.
question. Are you informed about how many people died yesterday in the wars that are going on in this world right now?
No, of course not.
And then the same company that do the fracking for gas have the water market tied up, the industry, the fresh water market. It's called Nestle,
Yeah.
and they heavily influenced by the pharmaceutical industry, mining industry, resources. But some of them are doing the right thing. Some of the corporations are starting to wake up and realise that the people know, the people have access to information.
All right. So doesn't that mean that the better informed the general public is, the more incentives there will be also for the corporations to make ethical decisions? This is sort of the point that I'm moving towards here. I could give an example. There were a lot of stories about animals being treated badly in producing food, like caged chickens, etc. And because of this, at a certain point, the large food corporations in Norway decided that they would outface caged chickens, and they increased the standards for animal welfare. Probably not as much as one would like, of course, but the point is, it shows that there's a mechanism that the incentives change if the perception of the public changes. And that, again, is a result of the information flow in society and really the entire culture. So once again, we seem to return to this issue of human beings, consciousness, data, and behavior, and psychology and choices. So therefore, my hypothesis is, if we can make a beneficial change here at the center, then this will create a cascade of ripple effects, which nobody can control, but it will probably be pretty good if the, let's say, if the work at the center is good, then I would trust that the ripple effects will be good too. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we can use that effect to train the AI, because everything we do is teaching the machine. Right? Every action we take, every thought we have, every movie we watch, every channel we visit, every blog we visit and read and comment on is teaching the AI, is waking up and learning about what makes us tick.
Yeah.
And the corporations who run the algorithms and the machine language are analysing the data with those heat maps Josh was showing us. And that's how they pick out the market segments to target with more resources for the advertising and marketing campaigns. You'll notice those change from country to country. You won't see the same ad in India that you see in Ireland.
So effectively, we are programming these algorithms then. I mean, the public, in a sense, is programming the algorithm.
Well, no, we're not programming. We're just supplying the data.
Yeah, but in a sense, we're programming them because of our choices, right?
No, we're not. We are just living.
Yeah.
Right? We're going about our lives normally with our desires, right? We desire certain things. We desire gadgets, right? We desire, some of us, I'm not speaking for everyone, but I have a desire for food. I go down and buy food. See, I spend money on things, right? That makes me a commodity for the machine. The AI wants to know more about me because it wants to target where I'm spending that money. So it wants to know what I want to spend it on, what am I buying? And every time we buy something, we're not programming it, we're just giving it more data. We're increasing the amount of data it has to look at and analyze. It's an algorithm, it's a program. It doesn't have to be programmed because it is a program, it runs by itself. The algorithm's just collecting data and then arranges it into patterns for the executives to look at. The people who make the money decisions to spend money on marketing campaigns and where we're going to send our executives for Christmas, a holiday.
Yeah.
I find it really difficult to talk with the background interference noise.
Yeah, just
maybe you could turn that off, Glenn.
Yeah, I just muted it. Yeah, I don't know if you caught that, Josh, but it seems that there's this macro pattern here then, that all of these laws are over time being adapted to, some kind of compromise from the totality of public perception, which was, in one sense, it's this really small window that we talked about earlier compared to everything else that's possible, but at the same time, it's obviously a very big panorama of values, you can say. But it makes it does seem to be the case that in a sense, in a very direct sense, it is the general population that is controlling the government and not the other way around. There is obviously a feedback loop, but over a longer period of time, people will get the politicians they deserve and the laws they deserve, in a sense.
Exactly.
And the corporations they deserve.
Well, if the corporations supply the money for the campaign, the politician will run a good campaign and he'll be elected. He'll be the puppet for the corporation, not for the people. The only way the people can win over that puppet is by in a local group together. It's a regional thing. If you understand politics, you'll know that.
Of course. But that's something I talked with Josh about earlier, and Josh made the point that these regional local groups already exist, and that is nations and cities and districts, etc.
Well, the ones with an agenda, like the global collaboration, are the ones who need to unite more than others. We're sending a message to our local politician to pull his finger out, or he'll be voted out of office because, look, our group is united But the thing is, that's not happening because our group is not united.
Right.
We haven't got, none of us have got a web. Who's got a web page? Josh has got one. I've got one, and I think Doug's got one. But I think that's, you know, how many others have got a GCC local web page where they can put their favourite links? A real cool web page. It's better than a Facebook page. You can call it. You can start a Facebook GCC group. Anyone can start a Facebook GCC group and call it your local district.
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
use
of
you
course.
can use Amazon if you want to use. If you don't like Facebook, you can use Twitter or Amazon or ImageGram. I don't know. There's hundreds of them. But the thing is to get the page out there so it's just on the internet. Then the local politicians can suddenly wake up in one morning and say, shit, there's 600 people here who are going to vote against me if I approve this coal mine. So you'll say no. You'll be political suicide to go ahead with that many people in the local group opposing the idea. But because they're not united, they haven't got web pages, they haven't agreed, they haven't made a micro agreement with each other that they would do something, and
Well,
nothing's happening.
Many people have a web presence. Many.
No, I'm talking about GCC web page.
Yeah, but GCC is just another concept.
No, I'm talking about Alex Reed's GCC web page, Josh's GCC web page, right? Glenn's GCC web page, Jaswinder's GCC web page. Because they all exist on the internet, the local politician can look up how many GCC people are going to vote in my area. If he sees 600, he'll say, shit, I better see what their policy, the policy agenda is, because if I do something they don't like, they might vote against me and I'll be out. That'll be the end. That's the dirty nature of dog-eat-dog politics, local politics. And those local politicians are the ones who end up making the laws that approve the coal mines and approve the Chinese factories and the free trade agreements and the chemical companies poisoning our water supplies. So,
yes, but
we are the change.
Yes.
The point I'm getting at is we are the change. We can't bullshit and expect other people to do any change for us. We got to unite ourselves. We have to come together as a group and decide to do the little simple thing. What's the little simple thing? Put a page on the internet. Put up a blog site. Josh has been talking about.
But the whole question is what we put on the blog, right?
You choose. You decide. You decide that. The important thing is to call it the GCC blog page and the name of your district. If you haven't done that, you're not part of the game. You're not playing the game if you haven't got your district up on the internet, because you're alone in your district. You're having zero effect on the local policies. When you've got 10 people, when you've got 10 friends in your district who think it's a good idea and they put a page up too, they do it not because they want to change the world. They do it because there's also a reward involved. The reward comes from the money generated by the marketing, the ads, the banner ads on the web page. Now, they might not make much money, but the people are not doing it for money, right? They're putting up a web page and just leaving it there. Once it's up, leave it. It doesn't need to get traffic. It doesn't have to have a web advertising. It doesn't need that. It just has to exist because the algorithm can count it. The algorithm's not interested in making money. It's only interested in counting how many people oppose a piece of legislation in the local area. Because the politicians are smart too. They've got programmers designing apps and algorithms to check these things out. That's why when you said a nation gets...
What if the people support a stupid legislation? I mean, I don't understand what you're talking about.
That happens because the silent majority. Have you heard about the silent majority?
Yeah.
They're the people who sit on their ass and do nothing. And that's why a country gets the government it deserves. The only people acting are the ones who have an agenda and a desire to a greedy desire for money or an unselfish desire to see a better world. But the thing is, they act. They're action people.
Well, what about all the activists who are motivated by resentment? Where does that fit into your model?
A lot of them don't vote, do they? They say, what's the use? A lot of them commit suicide. A lot of them end up on drugs. They end up on drugs and they end up dropping out.
And a lot of them become internet trolls.
No, a lot of them go off into the country and live. A lot of them go off into the country and live self-sufficiency. Internet trolls are paid by Facebook and Amazon and Microsoft.
I don't think so. I think some of them are, but I think there's a lot of internet trolls who are just lonely, depressed people who think the whole world is fucked up, and they're just angry at everything, and they have all kinds of wild, delusional ideas. I wouldn't want them to write my laws.
How long do they last on the internet?
I don't know. I mean, it depends.
I'm asking you, who are these people with wild, delusional ideas? And can you give us a list of their names and addresses? Because we'll send somebody around to give them some Valium.
Somewhat. I think there are many of them.
They didn't eat their mushrooms.
Oh, they bring them some mushrooms. Yeah.
No, who are these maniacs you're talking about that are on the internet trolling?
I think there's many of them. Very many.
Have you seen any lately? How long do they last?
Well,
can you make a note of it? Can you make a note of it, please? I want to see a couple of names.
Well, I don't want to call anyone out by name, so that's not going to happen. But
okay.
But I think every day.
I don't think there is any. I think they're too stupid. They're too stupid to sign into the internet.
Well, there's a. Have you heard about something called the Flat Earth Society? That's people on the internet. They believe the Earth is flat. That's pretty stupid.
Yeah, but they don't come into the equation. They're right on the fringes. They're right on the fringes. That crowd, aren't they? They're on the loopy-loop side of the equation.
Of course, there's many of those groups, many of them. So
if any flat earthers watching this show, go to my profile on the Facebook page and look for the video I posted on the flat Earth. It's a picture of Green Island looking over the horizon.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we've kind of gone through many different themes here, but the main theme that I see overriding all this, as usual, is related to human psychology and values and behaviors and choices, because that seems to be what determines all of this stuff. When you describe your plan, Alex, the first question that comes to my mind is, what are we going to write on those blogs? Are we just going to write our own subjective usage?
No, you haven't got it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There can be a blank page. It just has to be there. It doesn't matter what's on it. As long as it's got a vote. It's a vote from a person who said, I'm in the GCC, and that's why I'm putting up this page, because that's the way the algorithm can count you.
I don't even know what the GCC is.
Forget about GCC. Let's just say you are an activist. You want to be counted, right? Mm-hmm. Well, you're not. You haven't got a web page on the internet. You're not in your local area. You're on the world global internet. You're not in your local area. You globalize it. You've got to grok your global area and become an activist in the real world.
Well, I can engage in the physical area where I live. I can be active.
That's what I do. That's what I do. I've become quite well known in my local area.
That's entirely possible.
I could end up getting voted. They want me to run for pre-selection.
Right. But if we're going to speak about a global collaboration, because you began by saying the top 10 ideas for global collaborology, that would need that we have some knowledge of what kind of global society would be sustainable. For example, what would be a global society?
Where does the knowledge come from? Where does the knowledge come from if they haven't got a page?
It comes from our imagination and our minds and our intelligence.
Without a page, the machine can't count you.
Well, without an intelligence, there's no point having a page.
Yeah, it's counting pages. Some people have pages.
Many.
It's not counting your page because you haven't got one.
Well, I don't understand why that's important. If I don't have anything valuable to write on that page.
Let me explain why it is important. The local council are going to approve of mine, right? That might cause trouble to the groundwater the farmers use. Okay, the local people drink, and the people don't want it. But because the corporation is funding these politicians, they're ignoring what the people say. The only way we can get rid of these politicians is by voting them out of power. And you can't do that without a local united group. Over.
Yes, that's local elections. And we're going to have local elections here this year. Actually, it's just in a couple of months. We're going to have local elections. And there's different districts who have different politicians. And they have different projects that they want to start. And they have a list of names. And everyone who's above 18 can vote on their names. So
yes,
that wouldn't change for the web page.
The people who are voting are not getting our input because we haven't got a united local group. We're not a force to be reckoned with. We have no influence because we're scattered and we're not organised.
So do you mean that the people in the local area aren't organized? They're not united, and in that sense.
No, I'm talking about. Think of it like this: you're a virus, okay? You're a piece of bacteria, and you want to replicate and grow. Like you've got to contact another organism, and that means a friend who lives in your neighbourhood. Once you've contacted another organism and pass on the information to that organism, it can divide, but it can't do it until you act. So it takes the power of one person acting. The power of one is the secret ingredient, the true power of one. When you complete that action by making another person aware of the power of one, they might do the same. If you give them the manual, they might say, hey, that's a good idea. I'll go and see if I can get 2 people to do the same. Next thing you know, you've got exponential growth on your hands and a viral thing growing. That's how. You know how Amazon do it? Josh will tell you.
Yeah, Joshua had something he wanted to say.
If you want global governance and global impact, you've got to start with the power of one.
You also need ideas.
Well, look at the page. Look on your page and see where you put the ideas.
Yeah, it's a blank
page. How do we know? Well, you decide what goes on that page. But what I'm saying is it really is up to you to get the page up so we can count you. We can't count you. The algorithm, the machine learning machine can't count you. The marketing experts, well, they know you're here, but they don't know you're an activist.
Let's hear what the marketing expert has to say. We got one here in the room. So,
yes.
I just a headache because I'm hearing you say the same thing, and also it's giving me a headache because Alex thinks that you don't have a page, Glenn, even though you have a WordPress page and you've been posting considerably to it. But what I'm hearing you say, Alex, is how wonderful would it be? Right. How wonderful would it be if we united around a united front, which is signaling to the internet that we all feel the same way under a tag or a moniker or a GCC or a united hashtag.
A URL. It's called a URL. It's called a universal resource locator.
And that requires
Go ahead.
Yeah, what does that requires that we have a common vision, doesn't it? Otherwise,
Global
what's there to unite on?
Co-visioning, global governance, global
Yeah.
governance,
Can we even-
co-visioning.
Come on, take it easy, Alex.
Go
Yeah,
right ahead.
take it easy, little
I'm
Alex.
just saying,
Go, Josh.
Sustainable governance.
Sustainable governance. Okay. So, Josh, it's your turn.
yeah, I just want to recognize Alex's passion for uniting people together globally to affect change on the local level with your local legislation. That is a beautiful passion. I am 100% behind that. And how we do that is impossible. Meaning we can't even do, there's 3 people here in this room. We can barely even, it's.
Yeah, I decided to make a page, and I did it. I did that. It's called GCC Far North Queensland.
Mm.
And
Well,
at least it's there. You know, at least it's up there, and I've got people joining. I don't need people joining. I just need it there. So when the machine counts me, it knows I'm a GCC member. There's another one. There's another one in Far North Queensland.
Yeah, I get that point. So you know,
and it knows what we like.
You can have a network of pages for each person in the whole world, like who have their own page where they can write anything they want, and you can then have also information about where they're located, so it becomes smaller local nodes, etc., etc., etc.
The secret is in the name. The secret's in the name of that page. Global collaboration activists or whatever. It's got to have a name that links the URL is linked in the database to a massive global database, right? It's called Amazon or Google or the alphabet. It's called the internet. And every page has a distinct identifiable URL, universal resource locator. The algorithm needs that information, and we haven't given it to them as a united if we're not using the format of the URL.
Yes,
if we use that name, so we put the name Global Collaboration Challenges in the URL, or for short GCC dash, then the name you just at the beginning.
No, not GCC. I don't think GCC has to do with this. The name would have to be Alex Reed, Glenn.
This is giving me a headache. Just listen to what he's saying as a theory and a concept, not as GCC. Yeah. He's just
politician.
Do you mind if I speak for you for 1 second, Alex? I don't want to talk over you. I just want to reflect back what I'm hearing you say, just so we have an actual conversation again, because I want to get back to a conversation.
Yeah.
I'm hearing Alex say a way to affect change is to unite around a unified resource locator and to have a symbol, which could be GCC dash and whatever it is. And then the algorithm would pick up on the amount of local people with the IP address geo-targeting that area with a GCC dash, et cetera, et cetera. It could be LMNOP, it doesn't matter. But if people are uniting around the same 3 letters inside of the unified resource locator for the domain name, that would signal that there is a united front happening, and that's a movement, and that's an energy. Am I hearing you right, Alex, that this energy and movement could affect change? Was that?
Yeah, you can have 500 web pages, but you only need 1 with that URL, and then the algorithm will pick up on it.
So is that
the voters will have power. The activists will have power. And you can click on your phone. You can click a button on your holotag phone that says yes or no. We vote for this idiot out to get this idiot out of power. Let's bring in a green representative.
And another word for what I'm hearing you say, Alex, is creating a union or a united something, a union of energy, a united voice, opposed to an individual voice.
it's just really easy to get an idiot out of power who's destroying the world if people learn to unite around a URL.
So this, can I
Get a
share a
lot of-
story, Alex? What we did
Yeah.
back in the Occupy movement to get people out of power?
Yeah.
I got upset. I saw people out on the street protesting, and that made me upset. Some of them are getting locked up. I thought, there's an easier way to do this. We don't have to go out and get ourselves locked up over.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that story, Josh? In,
Well,
Occupy?
what we did, yeah, we looked at the people in power at the time, and then we identified them and targeted them one at a time, so that we were allowing for the things they were doing behind closed doors to be shine a light in public. And we also shined a light not only on the people, but their actual personal address of where they live, a list of the policies that they have enacted. And then we started as a united front with millions of people posting this information to everyone unified, so that that information got out to the point where it started to affect that person in power. They were no longer working in the shadows where no one was seeing what they were doing. It was public knowledge by millions of people what they were doing. And by shining a light individually on each individual person, it started to affect their lives. And then they had to start either making good decisions because their constituents and the people that worked with them were 100% aware of who they are, what they're doing. And then that person, we stopped and went to the next person, and we did it, synchronicity. We did it in sequential order, so that a lot of the policies and the things that these people were doing were brought to light. And not just brought to light, but millions of people are watching. We want to know. And that is sort of the basis of the whole website called the WikiLeaks.
Right. Yeah.
That's what grew out of that movement, is a website where whistleblowers can say what people are doing without being the light shining on the whistleblower, but the light shining on the corruption itself, and corroborated with actual facts. Meaning WikiLeaks very rarely got things wrong. I can't think of, I think.
And that's essential. Yeah. That's essential. Yeah, I definitely see that value.
It's also essential what Alex is saying, and this is what I'm hearing him say, is if that was united and that information was across multiple platforms of many people saying the same thing, to me, it's a very dangerous thing, because now you're gaining power and becoming the mainstream media. Because if we had 800,000 GCC websites all across the globe, and we were all communicating, it's very hard to control the information at that point. And the telephone game happens where we start to miss our information and saying wrong things. It's very difficult to mass communicate. I think the understanding of how you mass communicate on the internet is, there's a lot of ideas, but actually in practice, there's a lot of case studies of things that have done well. For example, there was an ice bucket challenge that went around the internet that did very well virally to bring light to Lou Gehrig's disease and to try to help donate that money. But look at it now, 5-6 years later, where's all that money? Where did it go? Did we fight Lou Gehrig's disease? Does anyone care? Who knows? Like, it's the internet is a very interesting place, because we're all united, connected together with the click of a button on a browser. But affecting change, I think, is what I'm hearing you say, Alex, is strategically publishing information that brings to light things that need to be changed on the local level first. And then, to me, it all starts with the city, the county, the state, the nation state, the globe.
That was a great recap, Josh. I'll try to just do a brief one too.
That's what I heard. I might be wrong, Alex. Sorry if I.
The people united will never be defeated.
People united. So the essence that I hear is this uniting the people in one common information system. And concerning sustainable development, you also mentioned that, because there has to be a sort of like what information is most interesting here seems to be is what do the people want, in the sense of what kind of life do they most want to live. And if that could be a harness at scale, then clearly that could be very powerful. That's
True.
what you're talking about, right?
We know what people want. At least we know what 90% of people want. They want a clean water, you know, fresh food without herbicides, and uncorrupt politicians who are not on the take.
Yeah.
That's what people want. We know people want that, and we know how to give them the power of one. If I give away these web pages for free that people can put their own content on, I'm giving them the key to unlock their power of one, because included with that web page is the manual, and the manual just says copy what I did, add 2 friends to the local group. Convince 2 people that it's a good idea, that's all. Convince 2 people it's a good idea, and they will do the same if they're on board, if they're awake to the power of one. Then they'll go out and add 2 friends. That way you get a viral growth happening. And if you want a group on the internet to grow virally, you do the same thing. Start locally with real people. You can do it with a machine, but the algorithms can detect whether it's a machine or a real person now because of the holochain smart contracts and all that sort of thing. Even the mobile phone device, which tells you exactly your precise location within 1 meter.
You said something interesting there, Alex, and that is that we know what 90% of people want. So if we throw out a few things, let's take the example of sustainability, for example. This has become a very popular idea, and clearly there's certain very specific things that are shared common interests. And for example, I read an article today about planting trees, and it was this report that showed that if we plant enough trees, that is going to stabilize a large part of the climate, and it's also going to help with species, regeneration of species, and not least, it's going to help with making our human environment better. I mean, I live in a place where there's a lot of trees, and it makes an incredible difference compared to living in a place where there's no trees. So that's an example of a really good idea. If we can have areas where we have mixed green areas which are close to where people live.
Yes, it'll help. It'll definitely help. One of the problems, mind you, that is also being addressed, I don't want to put fear, I don't want anyone to feel scared or frightened about this, but it's expected the increase in the consumer consumption rate in China, for gadgets at least, is expected to double by the year 2030. Now that's going to put pressure on the environment. That means the CO2 is going to keep going up. We're going to keep burning coal. They have to have energy to put this shit out, and a lot of them are going solar, which is great, but the pressure is coming from those 90% of people I was talking about. That's where the pressure is coming from. People like us who are learning how to organise on the internet and create local change by influencing the local minister, who's the guy who writes the laws governing environmental degradation, land clearing, you know, all that sort of shit. Plastic waste, microplastics.
Yeah, Joshua.
I was just gonna say, the gentleman we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation, Eric Weinstein. I make sure I say his name right. It's not a Weinstein. Weinstein. he and a bunch of other people have coined this movement that we're all involved in, is the intellectual dark web. So there's a lot of people like us that are getting turned into a meme, the intellectual dark web, that we're trying. There's, you know, it's gotten into the millions. There's millions of us globally having these types of conversations like we're doing today to figure out how to make the world a better place. And it's, the movement is happening. And I just want to say, it's, you know, one person coined the phrase intellectual dark web, but I think with any movement, as it grows in steam and more conversations are happening, it will eventually mold into something that probably the three of us will go, hey, we're not a part of that, but it will mold into something. And all these intellectual conversations of what to do and how to do something, hopefully will affect change. Meaning if we allow more people to join the conversation and increase their intellectual prowess of solutions and problems, et cetera, et cetera. Please continue, Alex.
Yeah, definitely.
There is a few people, like when I said 90% have a fair good idea of what's needed in the world, not only locally but globally. There's a small percentage, like that 10%, who are unable to comprehend the significance of the times we are living in, and they don't care. They're people who just don't care or can't understand. They can't fathom the depth of the seriousness of the climate change that's coming.
Can I caution you, Alex, to create conversations that regenerate more people into the movement? Because if we're telling other people that they don't care, it's like neuro-linguistic programming. They're going to hear that and go, no, I don't care. Whereas if we use a positive languaging of, there's 20 million people that want to join this conversation that care, that don't know where the conversation is happening on the intellectual dark web on a Facebook group called GCC.
That's a better way
to put it. They don't know that this thing.
Yeah.
This is why
they don't know that there's three of us.
They do care, really. They don't know where to go yet.
But this is where
thank you, Alex. I think people care, but they haven't prioritized this conversation. Isn't their priority. This particular conversation, they're in a different conversation somewhere else right now.
Yeah.
There's hundreds and thousands of people right as we speak having, whether it be a Zoom conversation or a chat in a forum, there's millions and millions of people right now having the same type of conversation. How do we make the world a better place? And how do we help people survive the climate that is the present right now at this moment in time? How do we help us go from 7.4 billion to 9.6 billion people in a way that we have a good life, that we can live without having to go to Mars? Like, how do we do this?
Well, you've got a phone with a camera, and when you plant your tree, you make a movie of yourself planting the tree and post it on YouTube. If you plant 10 trees in 12 months, you can join Viascope and become a shareholder and get a reward, $100 a year.
Beautiful.
Money comes from the sponsors, donations.
Yeah, I got a friend of mine. I call them a friend, they're actual real friend. Every video they've ever produced for 3.5 years, and they're producing 5 to 7 videos a week. It's called Now You Know, and they, partnered with a t-shirt company. Every t-shirt you buy, plant a tree, zero carbon. They're just very aware people in Massachusetts in the United States of the electric revolution. And they did a whole piece on the particles of carbon in the air, on global oil consumption, on fracking. There's a lot of these movements. Yeah.
They can all have a free page for the GCC. I'll guarantee
Alex,
them.
I think do you have a Patreon? Because that is the key to success right now. And do you have a YouTube channel? Because without those two, you're not going to get a lot of traffic to your website. I'm just, as an internet marketer, I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah. I avoided Patreon for some reason.
Clearly, clearly this, you know, intellectual dark web. I've heard about it. Following a few of the people on Twitter. But I'm seeing a couple of problems because there's so many of the conversations that don't actually have anything to do directly with what would a better world look like. It's more about what is being done wrong and who is doing it. It's like, I don't know, it's very easy for those conversations to get corrupted. For example, it gets, you know, a guy called
That's cynicism.
Rubin? I know, yeah, cynicism. You probably know this guy called Dave Rubin, and
I don't.
well, he's a fairly famous podcaster, you know, and you know, it seems like a very, very nice guy, you know, and he's sort of part of the intellectual dark web. He's had Eric Weinstein on, etc. But when I see him on Twitter, he is like continuously responding to other people saying stupid things about him that are wrong, etc. And it's all within this framework of the left and the right, which are these traditional modes of thinking, which are incredibly primitive, that haven't been updated in hundreds of years, probably based on a basic conceptual misunderstanding, the entire idea of the political left and right. But these ideas are being propagated again and again and again and create endless new divisions and endless new misunderstandings between people. And one of the reasons is because they don't have that positive language that you mentioned. Yeah, Josh.
So what do you think of the idea of sharing the conversations in a way that allows them to regenerate and grow, and building around organizations that are more in tune in frequency with specific individuals' needs, wants, and desires? One of the conversations I found through the GCC and through groups that have come in and out is the Dig Life community, which is Digital Life Collective. And they're doing a really great job. They're really good people. They all met with the PKE, which is the Practical Knowledge Ecology, which spawned from the GCC in New York City. And the more I watch these groups merge with good people and strengthen the conversations, the more I'm seeing people asking for clarity. Like for right now, we're recording this conversation. Where is it going to be posted? Well, it'll be posted to either Sam or Tammy's YouTube, and then it will be posted. It'll be posted under a setting that's not 100% public. It's semi-private, so we can see it. We're creating our own feedback loop, is what I'm saying. Is we're not regenerating the conversation in a way that allows for more communities to join and us to join more communities. We're not growing together. We're growing apart.
Okay,
And
well,
that's
this conversation will be shared on my YouTube channel, and like if any of you had recorded it, you could also share it on yours. So that should be easy to do. But I don't want to miss that main point you said, Josh, because that's crucial.
I'm saying to regenerate the next conversation at the end of this conversation, that's where I would like to see us be more focused and aware of. When we complete this conversation, are we regenerating more conversations that, go ahead, Alex.
I was just going to mention that recording, it uses more energy. So if one person records it, then they give us the link. We don't have to record it. We can download it and save it from the link if we want to download it.
And Glenn just said he's doing that. Yep.
Yeah.
So we don't all have to make our own recording. But the other point was, just quickly, the key ingredient I realized a while back was that if I get that page up somewhere and add 2 people, I've completed my task. I call it the pledge to the planet. That's my pledge to the planet, was add 2 friends to my local group. That is pretty powerful pledge to the planet, because the page I give those 2 people has the manual on it. And the secret information in the manual allows them to become shareholders and earn rewards.
Yeah. You covered that earlier, but I don't want to lose that point you brought up, Josh, because you said if we can have conversations around people's needs and wants, that
Yes.
would be
So
very different from the kind of conversations that uses the mentioned categories that I said, which are very divisive, but would be person focused, needs and values focused. It would ask the question, what do you actually need? What do you want? What is your dreams, your values?
can I share the wisdom of a podcast, which I know we both watch, which is the Joe Rogan podcast?
Mm-hmm.
Is when he has a person on the podcast, he said he tries his best to have dialogue, not dialogue. He likes to have just one person on. And then his community, the platform of YouTube. And the power of YouTube is the comment section below and the ability to link the video itself, the podcast, to a Twitter channel, which is a communication device. And he used to have a bulletin board system when he first started to regenerate who is the next person that the community wants to hear from. And that's why he built a successful podcast, is because he kept regenerating it from 500,000 people, asking them who they want to hear. And then they made a decision. We really want to hear this person. So he reached out to that person, and then that person's community reached out, and it's 5.6 million people, and it's growing. But if we do the same formula with the wisdom of who do we want to hear on the next conversation, and then actually invite them, and on your YouTube channel, Glenn, if you put in the comment section and in the little part when you post it, if you want to be invited to the next conversation of Glenn Gaslin on his YouTube channel, click here and contact me, and then I will send you the Zoom link. And if we all grew it that way, it'll grow exponentially. But the platform that's growing the fastest in the world globally is YouTube. And if we're not utilizing YouTube in a regenerative conversational way, then what are we doing?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Well,
And that was actually exactly what Tammy wanted us to do also in future now for the Fridays, actually, to invite someone that we want to invite. So obviously.
Well, who do you want to hear from, Glenn, on the next conversation? And Alex, who do you want to hear from on the next conversation in our intellectual dark web community?
Joshua,
I mean, you just go to the GCC. There's plenty of amazing people that are members of that.
Yeah.
I'd like Joshua to be the anchor man.
Want to hear from? Like, let's invite them.
Yeah.
I wish I had the time and the bandwidth to do that. At the moment, I don't. But
yeah,
I'd like Tammy to be the anchor woman. She does a great job at that, and I'd like her to be invited to conversations, because she's doing that on her own already. She's having great conversations with great people, but are we regenerating them in a way that the community is enjoying? Meaning, I'd like to kick back and just watch, and then keep changing those two people. Like today it's you, Glenn, and then one day it could be Tammy, then it could be Doug, then it could be Alex. If we all just had dialogues and watched the dialogue, I think where we're messing up in our global governance conversation is we're allowing for chaos to constantly ensue as opposed to regenerative conversations ensuing. That's just my ask.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening.
Regenerative. So basically, you mean to have new people come in and have one conversation each time where that person is sort of featured?
I mean, if you look at the formula of Joe Rogan, he doesn't have 6-7 people in a room because it gets too chaotic. It's a dialogue between one person with a body of work and a body of knowledge on a specific subject. and it's another person with a generalized knowledge of allowing the conversation to organically direct towards that person's body of knowledge. For example, if you, Glenn, had a very specific subject that you have studied and worked on for 10, 15 years, even if it was 3 years, you went really hard on that specific subject, then organically the conversation will flow towards that body of knowledge because that is who you are. So if we're having a really good regenerative conversation about daily life, it'll eventually push over or pull over towards that knowledge breadth because your thought process going to be very heavily influenced by what you've done over the last 3 years of that subject. So eventually we'll get into the mind. It's like almost like writing a book in free form on a podcast. I think it's very powerful when you ask someone to speak for 2 hours or 3 hours about something they're very passionate about.
Oh yeah.
That regenerates knowledge.
It definitely
The
does.
amount of knowledge, the amount of knowledge in our community of GCC alone is huge.
Oh
like
yeah.
William Charlton. Oh my gosh, have you guys seen what William Charlton is doing with Untied Nations?
No, I haven't seen what he's been doing lately.
Amazing work. And Dmitry Sokolov, what he's doing with his
Yeah,
wiki.
like in mind. Yeah, that's amazing. I found an incredible.
Yeah, and go on down the line. Klaus Manger, what he's doing. Sam Hahn and Carl Hemstred, what they're doing with regenerating knowledge from Doug Engelbart's work for 20 years. I mean, the amount of knowledge we could actually be sharing in conversation as opposed to just me talking about the iPhone. Who fucking cares about the iPhone? Nobody cares. It's ubiquitous. It sits in our pockets. Like, my conversation isn't reaching anything, so I'm going to shut up and listen to other people. Like what Alex is doing in his local areas in Viascope, that's fascinating. Like, let's learn.
Community of impact. That's what Sam was doing. It's spreading that community of impact.
How about a community of signals that are amplified and the noise that is quieted? So more amplified signals of understanding and knowledge and intellectual prowess and heart prowess. And the conversation I jumped into yesterday was beautiful. Really beautiful.
Yeah, sometimes you can have some of these group conversations that are unstructured that can really be amazing. But I really love that idea, obviously, since I mentioned this like probably soon 100 times, that we really need to get this deep dive concept going, which is pretty much exactly what you described there. And then you can have one person featured, you have one interviewer, and maybe you'll have several people in the room that they should listen and perhaps ask questions, and you can really focus in and go deep with what that person wants to present. And it's super valuable because I've listened to these podcasts before. Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss, he has an amazing podcast as well, and several others, and I learned so much. It's amazing. It's really inspiring.
What was inspiring?
Sorry. Oh, go ahead, Alex.
What was inspiring was when I learned after years of marketing and doing some research in marketing and developing websites, web pages and websites and Ning groups, I realized that I didn't need to get thousands of people. I only needed to get 2 people interested. Over.
Exactly. Yeah, and what I would like to help everyone in our community do is to take the things that they're passionate about, find the people that have done the work, the due diligence, the studying about those subjects and those things they're passionate about, and then grow their personal knowledge. Meaning you, Glenn, create the YouTube channel, but then help you to find the things that you're passionate about and the things that the community that builds around that channel are passionate about, and get in touch with those people that have that knowledge and share that knowledge.
Yes,
So,
and that is something which will be very easy once this large database that everyone is talking about in different ways is being built. This is one of those emergent ideas.
it's already built.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for example, right now, if you could talk to anybody right now in the Global Challenges Collaboration group, if you went onto the Facebook group and clicked on the 1,000 some odd people there, if you could contact those people and ask them if they would have a conversation, do you know where you would start? Like, how would you get started doing that?
Weebly did it. They used the marketing tagline. Weebly used a tagline marketing, and it says, "Don't tell people your dreams, show them."
Yes.
So I'm saying, do you know how to slide into the DMs? That's the colloquial term that we're using nowadays with the internet. How do you slide into a private message one-on-one with a person that you want to talk to? How do you get their attention to ask them to come to a YouTube recorded show? That's the skill set I think we have to learn from each other, is how to communicate to each other and say, I like what you're working on. I want to shine a light on that, and I want to talk about that for 2 hours. And out of that conversation, I want to inspire and regenerate another conversation with another person.
Yeah. I love that plan. Definitely.
I like it. It sounds good. Finding out establishing what the other party's motives are and priorities is a beginning stage, because you're wasting time with people who have different motives and different range of priorities than yours. So establishing some ground rules at the beginning is a good idea. Over.
Yeah, and I was going to say, sorry, I was just going to say, doing your due diligence of going to that person's work on the internet and grokking it and finding the holes of where you personally don't quite understand, and writing down those questions so that when you get to have the special one-on-one dialogue with that person, you this, what did you really mean? Because I read that article, but I didn't quite understand.
Yes.
You know, I posted that link. Did you see that link I put in the chat?
Let me look.
As an example, just as an example, that you can use Facebook. It's a link to a Facebook group. It's just an example. I put it up there just to show the world, to show the GCC community that you can, in fact, use Facebook to establish a GCC group.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share the other 75 to 150 things that you can use also, but that's sidetracking the conversation. I think the one platform that works, that is very simple and can be easily turned into multiple platforms, is YouTube. You've got comments, you've got a community, you can go live at any time. You can use Google Hangouts and click on Google Hangouts Live with YouTube. I mean, it is a powerful, powerful platform, and worrying about it being co-opted, I think, is a waste of time, because if you're co-opting it yourself towards the conversations you want to have and the community wants to have because they're in the community, that will regenerate. And if we all individually broke out of these little clicky conversations we're having with each other, we've already talked to each other for years. If we start talking to other people, and then when we come back to our clicky conversations, how much better will that conversation be? Because there's more voices added and we can refer back to these other conversations. Then we'll grow our knowledge and wisdom together as a group.
Yes.
Hey, Josh, don't take that cigarette. Don't leave that cigarette lighter at home when you go out. It looks like a gun. Don't take it with you in the car.
I'll try not to. It's meant for lighting barbecues.
Taser gun, a little like a taser gun. Yeah, this is a super idea, and I mean, this is what Tammy wants to do. I mean, this is almost like listening to Tammy speak, actually. what you're saying.
Well,
But
here,
same
what
with
do you think
I.
about this as far? How
Doug
about this
Engelbart.
idea, Glenn? For collaboration, what if we started passing the different amazing people to each other, because we're going to regenerate different conversations with different people. So then we have a network of people to talk to. I mean, I know I'm speaking the obvious, but
You are.
executing that would be so powerful.
Yes, it would. It would. Yes. Actually,
Well,
I have an idea for a Facebook group to create a special Facebook group for that, and
YouTube.
the name of the obviously a YouTube channel as well. But the name it came to be, I think it's a great name. It's Celebrate the People. That should be the name of
Well,
it.
let me ask you something. What's the name of your YouTube channel? Why not start a YouTube channel called Celebrate the People? Where's can you put the URL to your YouTube channel in the chat right now, and let's look at it and see if it.
Sure.
Let's
I
help
have
each
one.
other.
I have a YouTube channel. Just a moment. Yeah, I have one YouTube channel, and
I've
that's
seen it.
the thing is, that's a sort of channel where I've created basically videos of just walking around in nature and filming the environment and thinking aloud. So it's kind of for philosophical.
Here we go again, singing the same old song.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's one of the videos I begin there. Just a minute. The URL.
Okay.
I'll try to find it. I'm searching with the name, and yeah, there I found it. Yeah. It's a very, very small thing, but I've also put out a few GCC conversations. I think that's it.
Okay. Do you mind if I pop it up on the screen?
I've been taking advantage of my
Sure.
bookmarks. But
take it up on the screen, no problem.
what I found was that the bookmarks facility is quite powerful when you can save your sessions on the browser. There we go.
Yeah, walking in
So I was just going to say, the clouds are beautiful. The name is beautiful, but it's not quite representative visually of what the videos are.
Yeah, the videos. If you click on the videos, we'll see. You can see.
So I'm saying when I see, so the key to marketing and the key to communicating and getting more people to build a community would be to have the images that you have. You just you didn't curate the actual images on the left side here, the people.
Right, that's right. It comes up with a few suggestions. Yeah.
Right. You can also create your own picture and have words there that says what I'm going to see, because most people don't read the words on the right-hand side. They just read the words because the way YouTube works is it pops on the right. And if that visual of that image is attractive, you'll click on that.
Yeah.
And the same thing when you come here, if the image on the top with the clouds is attractive, people will click on it. So I'm saying the way you build the community, we all know this, but like and subscribe. So you've got 14 subscribers. If we can go ahead, in other words, if you took the time to curate this in a way that really represents what your intention is and what you're going to have conversations on, then I can grab this URL that you gave me and post it into many different groups and build that community around these conversations. If we did that all to help each other individually, then we're regenerating. And
yeah. Definitely.
That's how it
That's
works.
a scalable model. That's pretty much what Alex is talking about too, right?
Yeah, I'm saying
And-
I can't right now grab this URL and post it to all my friends. They think I'm crazy. Walking in Wonder, 14 subscribe. What? Huh? Like, why are you? Whereas if you curated this a little better and had a more intention focused picture and intention pictures next to the videos, then I, within my community of influence and influencers and bridge, I can get 30 new people here. And then if Alex got 2 new people here, and then a few other people got another 5 people, eventually there are specific numbers that regenerate conversations. So once you have a certain amount of people commenting, and also the settings in YouTube, Glenn, where are, like, if I click on one of these videos, what are the, obviously there's not a lot of traction at the moment. There's 3 comments actually. Let's go look. What are these 3 comments?
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't been active here for a little while, actually. Well,
Alex is active here. He's commented the path of the, I can't scroll the screen down, unfortunately, on this.
Can't you
Oh, there we
scroll
go.
on?
So
It
there's
says that
Yeah,
the
2
path,
comments by Alex.
that was pretty funny.
the path is the obstacle.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, exactly.
It's asking me to, in order to subscribe, I have to sign in.
So far, I've sort of just used this channel as a little experimental collecting place for different stuff, this and that. But definitely, I mean, there's so much more you can do out of it, obviously. Much more.
I'm just saying, if we help each other to regenerate, if you're doing great things, I'm telling everyone you're doing great things, and we just keep communicating that there are these different places, that grows.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't need any feedback on the link I just posted, but it would be nice to know if it works or not.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
trying it now.
So just because I've got to run, I'm a half an hour over.
Okay.
Glenn,
Yeah,
feel
we'll
free to
wrap
reach
it
out
up
to me.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, all I want to do, I just want to say is I'm offering this to the community, is I want to help other people signal their intentions and the conversations they want to generate, and help them to try to grow those conversations like a tree and branch out. So some
Yeah.
people don't want to have that, and some people in our community do. And the ones that do, if we can help grow those conversations to a point where you're getting really good feedback, and then you can grow in the terms of listening to the community that you're creating. Everyone, I think, should have their own community, because of the fact that that community synergies and cross-pollinate with other communities, and
Yeah.
organically it just
Yeah.
works. I mean,
It
YouTube
makes
works,
perfect
man.
sense. It makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. Just before we go, I also think that an important ingredient in this will have to be written artifacts that can assist the video conversations. And if we can do that well, that's also going to add additional value. I guess it's an art of itself.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, the place you write that is underneath the video itself, right here. See how you didn't write very much here?
Right. I have written on some of them, but not this one. But yeah.
So depending on what you write here is going to give you engagement, because if you want to be on the next conversation, if you like this conversation and want to be a part of the next one, click here and direct message me, and I'll put you on the next conversation. And then if you transcribe the best parts of the conversation on here, it'll allow people to, you can even put at this point in the conversation, this was talked about. In other words, I don't need to get into, we all know these things, but practicing them and knowing them is very different.
Marketing.
Yeah.
And also, who is Martin? Like, why do we care about Martin? Where is the information to Martin's work? I'm sure Martin's an amazing person.
Yeah.
Where is his work?
It's just a guy been talking to met through this ecology of system thinking. So we just had a few conversations.
He's not treating it like a serious YouTube channel, just having a go. And I would agree that if you don't put the right message there, it's like saying nothing to see here, move along.
Yeah, absolutely. So far, I mean, it's just been like a dump of different stuff. But you know, when the time is right. I mean, there's so much
now
to do out of it.
Now's the right time.
Yeah. Anyway, this has been great. I think
You're doing great. Yeah. Thank you for doing this, Glenn. Thank you for holding this space today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, jumping around.
Can we make a booking? Can we make a booking? We make a schedule for next experiment Friday to talk about the YouTube event, the YouTube Josh Rogan show.
Josh Rogan show. Yeah, that's a good plan. Yeah, I think actually I'll be hosting it next Friday as well, probably. But yeah, let's do that. Let's have that as a theme. Why not? Like just continue on this theme. So
that's my checkout.
The Josh Rogan show. Does that sound good, Josh?
No, I'm not.
I think we got to work on that.
My show right now is not about me. It's about finding these communities that have been working their ass off for 20 years. Like Marco Zubietta in the P2P is doing amazing work. So I want to go to his show first. I'm not trying to create my own show. I want to. Yeah. He already has a show in P2P, and I also want to promote Digital Life Collective. I think they're doing great work, and I'm honored to be a member. It was $10 for a year, and they're doing great work.
Yeah,
I
totally get
a lot of people
everything you're saying. I mean, this is what I want to do, and exactly what Tammy's been talking about. Many others. I mean, this is what Sokolov, Dmitry Sokolov is. There's so many who are interested.
And John Keldon, etc. Yeah. We can just keep talking forever. There's so many great people in our community. Let's help them.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, Alex, you get the last word.
Interviews people. Let's do it.
Have any final words, Alex?
Yes, I've got a word. Last word is we can put the badges and links that those people have incredible action happening on the internet, the links to their activity, like the DigiLife and all that, and put it on our own page so that our friends can see those links as well. Just part of the organism, part of the AI.
Then the super organism.
It allows it to grow. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, on that note,
the GCC Rogan show. The global conversation.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Alex, the marketing behind my show, meaning my own personal website, is compassionate.technology. And that's what I'm coming at. I'm not Josh Rogan. I'm compassionate.technology. So if the technology isn't working for the people compassionately, let's just throw the computers in the trash. That's what my show's about. Is if the
I sent an email. I replied to Compassionate Technology with an email, and it didn't get delivered because your inbox was full.
I have an email for compassionate.tech. We're so compassionate, we don't do emails.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to wrap it up, guys. But this was great. So
I found a link to Josh's Compassionate Technology email address.
Yeah. Next week. Let's bring more light to this.
Just so you know, Alex, don't email that. There's no email there. So.
Okay. Yeah. Bye-bye.